Hello and good morning to everyone. So today's lead code question is 2161, that is partition array according to given pivot point, right? So in this question we are given a zero indexed integer array named as nums, and there is an integer named as pivot, and what we need to do is we need to rearrange the nums array such that all the elements that are less than pivot will appear before the every element greater than the pivot, and all the element equal to pivot will appear in between the element less than and greater than pivot. So basically it should appear. So first of all, suppose we have a pivot point, then all the elements that are lesser than pivot should appear before that, then all the elements that are equal to pivot, and then all the elements that are greater than pivot. But the thing is that the relative order of the elements that are lesser than pivot and greater than pivot should be maintained, right? That relative order should be maintained, and at the end we need to return the nums array after the rearrangement, right? So let's see the examples to get the question more clearly. So here we are given this nums array and our pivot is 10, right? So first let's see what are the elements that are lesser than 10. So 9, 5 and 3, they are lesser than 10. So first let's say we put 9, 5 and 3, so we get all the elements lesser than 10. Now how many elements are equal to 10? So two elements are equal to 10, so we put them in between. Then we see what are the elements greater than 12. So 10, sorry, 12 is greater than 14 is greater than, so two elements are greater than pivot point, that is 12 comma 14. So this is the nums array after rearrangement. So if you see all the elements lesser than pivot comes in the beginning, then all the elements equal to pivot comes in the middle, and all the elements greater than pivot comes in the end, right? And if you see the relative order of 9, 5, 3, so 9 is coming first, then 5 and then 3, so their relative order is also preserved. Similarly relative order of 12 and 14, so 12 comes first and then 14 is coming, so even their relative order is also preserved. So this is the question that we need to solve, right? So let's see the constraints. So here the nums array is having up to 10 ki power 5 elements, and each element belongs from minus 10 ki power 6 to 10 ki power 6, and it is given that pivot belongs to some element in the nums array, right? So let's move to the approach part. So as we know, we need to arrange our nums array such that the elements smaller than pivot comes first, then elements equal to pivot comes in the middle, and elements greater than pivot comes in the last, and their relative order should be maintained or should be preserved. So basically what we do is, so we take an answer array, and then we take two pointers, left pointer and right pointer, left pointer and right pointer. So whenever we get an element which is less than pivot, then we put that element where our left is pointing, and whenever we get an element greater than pivot, then we put our element where our right pointer is pointing. And then what we do is, then we traverse our nums array from both the sides simultaneously, like from left to right and from right to left. So simultaneously we will be iterating our nums array. So from left side, if we get an element which is less than pivot, then we put that element which is less than pivot at the pointer at the place where our left pointer is pointing, right? So answer of left is equal to that element, and then we increment left pointer by 1. And from the right side, if we get an element which is greater than pivot, then we put that element at the place where our right is pointing, that is answer of right is equal to that element, and then we decrement our right pointer, right? And once we put all the elements at left and all the elements at right, then if some space is left in between left and right, then at that space we put elements equal to pivot, right? So this is our approach part. So as we have processed the larger elements from right to left, and also we are filling them from, while filling we are also filling them from right to left, so their relative order is preserved, right? And this point I already told. Once we put the smaller and larger elements, then we fill the remaining position with the elements equal to pivot. So let's see an example to get the question more clearly. So we have taken this array and now we have 10, and now initially our left pointer is pointing here, our right pointer is pointing here, right, left, and this is our answer array. So we start traversing from left to this and to this. So initially we get 9, so 9 is less than pivot, so we put 9 at the place where left is pointing. So left is pointing here, so we put 9, and then we increment our left pointer, right? And from this side we get 10, which is equal to pivot, so we don't take it. Then in the next iteration, on the left side we get 12, so 12 is greater than pivot, so we don't take it. On the right side we take 3, which is lesser than pivot, so we again skip it. Then in the third iteration, here we get 5, which is lesser than pivot, so we put it at the place where left is pointing, so we put 5 here and then increment our left pointer. And from this side we get 14, which is greater than pivot, so we put it on the place where right is pointing and then shift the right pointer by 1. Then in the next iteration we get 10 from the left side, and again we get, so it is equal to pivot, so we skip it. We get right from the again, and even from the right side we get 10. Then in the next iteration, from the left side we get 14, and from the right side we get 5, so again we need to skip both the values. Then in the next iteration, from the left side we get 3, which is lesser than pivot, so we put 3 here and then increment our left by 1. And from the right side we get 12, which is greater than pivot, so we put it at the place of right and then increment our right pointer, right? And then from the left side we get 10, which is equal to pivot, and from the right side we get 9, which is lesser than pivot, so we do not do anything. So now we have processed all the elements, but still two positions have been remained empty. So after processing all the elements, now we fill these two places with the element equal to pivot. So even if you see in the example, we have two elements equal to pivot, those we have filled here, right? So we get our answer, that is 9, 5, 3, 10, 10, 12 and 14, right? So this is a dry run. So let's move to the code part. So in the code we have taken a vector of type integer named as answer, and then we have taken two pointers, left pointer and right pointer, and then we are iterating over the array from two sides, that is I is equal to 0 to n minus 1, and simultaneously we are iterating from j is equal to n minus 1 to 0, right? And then from this is from the first, if we get an element which is less than pivot, then we put that element at answer of left and increment our left, right? And from this iteration from end to beginning, if we get an element greater than pivot, then we put that answer at pointer at right and then decrement the right pointer. And this way we are traversing the whole array simultaneously in both the directions. And once we place all the smaller and bigger elements, then there may be some indexes left in between. So in those indexes we put the element equal to pivot, and at the end we return our answer. So I hope I am able to explain you the solution properly. So if you like the video, please make sure to like, share and subscribe the channel. Thank you.